For now, I think I'm just gonna route the exhaust down and do some turn downs. All right, after fighting with the world's cheapest welder, I finally got it.
Boom, we got both our wastegates in.
All right, well, this is getting a little bit difficult, but I think I have a good plan of how we're gonna run it. And boom, so that's our exhaust for now. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Rust and Mod. We're continuing working on our budget boosted Buick build here, and we're going to make some big progress today. So if you guys aren't familiar with the Buick build, I'll give you a rundown here. Basically, we actually got this thing from a junkyard for 200 bucks in the first episode of our playlist. Then we got the thing running and driving. We actually ended up driving the thing, but it ended up catching on fire. So we actually picked up a Silverado for pretty cheap. We ended up snagging the motor out of that Silverado and then parting that Silverado out so that way we could put some money into this thing. So we actually ended up putting heads, cam, and we decided why not turbo this thing. So we put 2 turbos on this Silverado engine and we stuck it into our Buick Skylark. So we're trying to do this on a little bit of a budget, so we're trying to keep the cost down but have a lot of fun doing it at the same time. So in the last few episodes, we figured out all of the fuel system and we figured out a lot of the stuff that we have to do just try to get this engine running. But the next big thing we have to do is figure out our accessories and we have to figure out our plumbing for our turbo kit. So we got to figure out the exhaust and all of the plumbing for the wastegates and stuff. So we got a lot of work to do, so let's get to this exhaust. All right, it's a pack shop in here. If you guys missed the last few episodes, we've been working on Patrick's Nova and we've been working on the boosted Buick. So we got a lot of Nova style GM cars here at the moment. We're gonna continue working on this thing and trying to get this exhaust figured out. So I got a lot of parts here from various different companies and various things that I think I pieced together to try to make an affordable way to do an exhaust. This isn't necessarily the best way to do it, but it's definitely the most affordable way that I could figure out how to do this. So I'll give you guys the rundown on what we're gonna do. So with our exhaust, the biggest complication pretty much is where we're gonna place the wastegates. Now you see I did throw on my power steering pulley just so I could see where that's gonna go. But in this area is gonna be the most tight area under the hood because we're gonna have to run our charge pipe up through there and we have to run our upper radiator hose, our power steering, and the turbo drains and our wastegate, so it's going to be pretty packed in there. Now in the last episode I told you guys to comment down below what did you want to see done with the exhaust. I mentioned I got some side pipes for pretty cheap at a swap meet and I thought they'd be pretty cool on this thing, but a lot of you guys really liked that idea and a lot of you guys really hated that idea. It was literally 50-50 in the comments. I'm gonna try to do something that kind of compromises and does both. Now we do have the Evil Energy exhaust cutouts, so that way we can run basically 2 kinds of exhaust. I think that'd be kind of cool. At least we'd have the sleeper look still. We can pull all that stuff off. And then if we ever want to show off and do something like that, we can put our side pipes on and really have that street presence that people want to see with this thing. So we're still trying to keep it a little bit sleeper, but we also want to make the thing cool at the same time. So I think that'll be good for both. For now, I think I'm just going to route the exhaust down and do some turn downs because I really just want to get this thing running and driving. And then we can go to the big shop and build a full exhaust in the future or later on and do that whole side pipe thing. So I think I'm just gonna be simple, do some turn downs, we can get it running, see how the thing runs, because who knows, this junkyard motor has 400,000 miles on it. It could blow up, it could not, I don't know. So since that's the plan we're gonna go with, I'm gonna keep this thing really simple. So I have a 4-inch V-band tacked on to the turbo flange, and I'm gonna have to weld that up. Then I have this reducer, so this goes from 4 to 3. Now, why am I not running 4-inch exhaust the whole way, and why am I running 3-inch? If you can see, this is a 3-inch pipe, and I barely can fit this thing down in here. It would be really tight and ridiculous to run a 3-inch down that way. So, since it has to be so tight, I'm probably gonna run it down this way, and I'll have a lot more room for clearance and everything like that. It'll run a lot cooler.
on this way, I literally have the exhaust, the valve cover, the booster, and the steering going right there, as well as the turbo feed line. So it's just gonna make a lot more sense to go this way. So I got this entire exhaust kit that comes with a bunch of bends, 90s, U's, everything like that that you need to do the full exhaust I have here. Then I have various V-band clamps. So these are 3-inch, and then I have some 4-inch clamps that are gonna go onto the turbos. Then we have our wastegates. So these are VS Racing wastegates that I'm gonna put on the front, so that way we can figure out our wastegate placement with our accessories. We have a lot of little stuff that we have to do to make this exhaust work. So let's get to putting this thing together and see how it looks. So the first thing I'm gonna have to do is pull off the turbos, so that way I can put those studs in here so the turbos can be finally mounted in there and they won't move around. And then those can be solid mounted, so that way this thing won't move around while I'm trying to make the exhaust. So let's pull these turbos off real quick, put those on, and then we should be good to go to make the rest of the exhaust pipe. First, I'm just going to mark the general spot of where this has to go. So I know I want it right here, the maximum flow. You kind of want it right at that bend. So I think this would be a really good spot for it. It also clears our power steering, and it'll clear where our turbo drain is going to be, which we can also route that a little bit differently. These are V-bands, so I can clock this kind of anywhere I want it to go. Now on this side is a little bit easier. We don't really have as much stuff here. So we do have these transmission cooler lines, and we have our accessories like our alternator. But if I put this here, same spot kind of as the other side, I think that that'll clear everything over here. There's no upper radiator hose or anything on this side, so we can just dump it straight down and that should work good. So going to mark it right here, and then we can go ahead, slap this thing on, see how it looks. All right, so I got the elbow marked. So we're going to basically take this piece of tubing and put it on in the center of that mark. Now this tubing is actually going to go into the wastegate, and it'll click in just like that, so that'll fit in nicely. I'm going to cut this tubing so that way we can figure out where this has to go. But the problem is I have to drill this hole out first and then fit the tubing into there. So let's drill this hole and then do the other side and see how it looks.
All right, after fighting with the world's cheapest welder, I finally got it.
All right, so finally our wastegate is in, and I just welded the whole thing. I figured I was just gonna tack it in place, but just went ahead and welded it. So we got the driver's side in there. It's kind of at the perfect angle. So I angled the pipe down a little bit instead of coming straight off. So that way I can run this pipe over it, hopefully, and then run the radiator this way. It's not angled so far down where I can't fit the turbo drain, and I can put this wastegate dump just straight down there. So that'll work out pretty good. Boom, we got both our wastegates in, finally. I've been waiting to do this for a long time. So this one, I angled it down a little bit again, and I'm gonna point it straight out of there. Looks like it has good clearance between everything. This one, obviously a little bit tighter, it's angled down, and I'm gonna point it straight out there, but that looks like that'll work. I got the turbos back in here, and I had to clock some things around to make it kind of exactly where I want it, because once I build the rest of the exhaust, it's not gonna be able to change. I got this turbo pretty much where I need it. I have that pointed right down there. This one I had to clock up a little bit more because it was actually interfering with the hood. So this one sticks up a little bit, but that's not really a big deal. This side's really easy. There's not anything down here, so that shouldn't be too big a deal. So we can go ahead and start making the rest of the exhaust. Now, like I said before, I'm gonna have to go on the outside of the frame, and I really don't like to do that. Hopefully you don't see it from underneath on the side of the car, but that's kind of my only option for going all the way back. So the one thing I do have to keep in mind is this tire. So as the tire turns, it's gonna fill in this gap here. So I gotta keep it tucked back towards the frame as best as I can, so that way it doesn't hit the tire. The other problem is the brake lines. I'm gonna have to clear the brake lines and stuff, and all this wiring, but the wiring can probably move. So I'm gonna start by putting on those collectors that go from 4 to 3, and then work from that collector back. All right, so trying to figure this out here. So I really don't want this thing to hang down very low, because I think it would look really bad. So I'm trying to tuck this up as high as I can. So basically I got two 90s just like this, so it goes underneath, but I need a piece to connect from here to here. So I measured it, and I'm gonna cut about a 7-inch piece to go in between there, and then that will come down, and hopefully it will tuck up like this, so that way you don't see it from underneath. All right, so that's kind of what it's gonna look like. I do have the tire turned all the way, so that way I'm making sure that it's not gonna hit this whenever it turns. So I'm gonna tack this up here, tack it up there. I do have a 90, it's kind of hard to see, 90 going down under the car, so that way I can put this other 90 underneath of it and hopefully get it as close as I can to the floor as possible. And then once I put that one on, I'm gonna be able to put a V-band on it, so that way I can get this section out of the way and it'll be easy to access everything else. So let me tack this up real quick, then I'll lift the car up and go ahead and tack that one. All right, so this side I have significantly more room, so I can go almost all the way back there, away from the fuel line as possible, and I have that one just straight back, and then a 90 down. So this side is the hard side with the wastegate and the rest of the exhaust. This side, a lot more open. So gonna go and tack this thing up, then we can lift it up and then finish the bottom.
All right, well, this is getting a little bit difficult, but I think I have a good plan of how we're gonna run it.
All right, so you know we're coming out here, trying to miss the brake booster, and then coming down. We're coming down here, and then I originally was just gonna come straight back, but on the other side, we actually have our fuel lines here, so that really wouldn't work. So what I figured is we have this kick up in the frame here, so we actually can come down here and try to go under the frame. Then I can put a V-band on here, so that way I can get this thing out one day. And then I can put this 45 going straight back, and then it'll be underneath. I like that a lot better because I don't really want to see the exhaust as much going underneath. You are gonna see it a little bit, but hopefully the tire will block it. But then it'll be a 45 going straight back. Basically a full exhaust, except going over the axle, which, like I said, we'll get to that. I'm just gonna do this for now, so that way we have something. So that's gonna work. I'm gonna try to go and tack this up, but I need to put some exhaust hangers on this thing because we're just tacked up right now, and there's a lot of weight hanging off this thing if we do the full length. So I'm gonna throw some exhaust hangers on this real quick. Probably just go right to the frame there on both sides, and then I'll put these 45s on, and then we can just run straight back. Now you can kind of see what I'm trying to do. I'll do a 45 and then literally just come straight back, 2 exhaust hangers on the back. It ended up working out. I think that kick up on the frame really helped us with tucking this thing up and trying to make this as nice as we can. It's a little bit of a challenge, but I think we can get it. We are definitely gonna have to pull this whole thing out and re-weld it and do it probably a little bit better whenever we go ahead and do the side pipes and everything. So we have these 2 V-bands, so we can just disconnect those and then just redo the exhaust from here back. But I'm literally just gonna do 245s and then just straight back into some dumps, and that'll be it for now. That'll at least get us on the road until we have some time to do a really cool exhaust on this. Got the driver's side pretty much how it's gonna look for now. Moving on to the passenger side, it's a little bit different angle. So what I'm gonna do is actually cut this U, and that will go more of a direct path going straight back. Gives me more of an angle here. So I'm gonna go cut this, tack the V-band on there, and then repeat the process.
I've been playing around with how I want to finish off the exhaust. So you can see we came down here underneath that notch in the frame, and then we just come straight back. So I know this is going to be temporary, but I did want to make it look pretty cool. So I'm thinking of just doing something like that. Do that 45 just right out the side. I was going to just do dump straight down. I just feel like there's going to be a bunch of fumes and stuff in the car. At least this will shoot it out instead of just shooting it straight down. The one problem though is our fuel line here is kind of right in the way, and I really don't want to melt this fuel line. So maybe I can make some kind of heat shielding to go around this, but for right now that kind of looks like our best case scenario. I'm just going to tack this thing up real quick and we'll pretty much call it done. All right, so there you have it. So that is what the exhaust is gonna look like for now. I think it worked out pretty good with the limited resources that I have. I literally have this Harbor Freight welder that was 140 bucks, the angle grinder, and the hole saw, and we made this entire exhaust. I think it'll work pretty good for our purposes for now, till we can do something really nice and do the whole thing. So that's what it's gonna look like. I think it turned out pretty all right. That's gonna do it for this episode, guys. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe so you can stay up to date with both of the cars behind me. We have a lot of stuff to go on the Buick and the Nova, so we're gonna have a lot more content coming your way. So make sure you like, comment, subscribe so you can stay up to date with all the projects we have in the shop. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.